3 practices, 1 exhausted rookie quarterback, and suddenly the entire direction of the Pittsburgh Steelers feels different. While the rest of the league keeps forcing quarterbacks into systems that clearly don't fit them, Pittsburgh may have finally found a coaching staff willing to completely rebuild a young passer the right way. And if what's happening behind the scenes with Drew Allar is real, Steelers fans might be watching the beginning of the next franchise quarterback era unfold right in front of them. And real quick, if you're obsessed with Steelers football and want daily breakdowns with zero fluff, hit subscribe right now because this offseason is getting absolutely wild. There's something Steelers fans haven't been able to confidently say in a long time. There's finally a sense of direction at the quarterback position. Not panic, not desperation, not another temporary fix. Actual development, actual patience, actual planning. And honestly, it feels refreshing. Because for years, this team has been trying to survive offensively instead of building something sustainable. You could feel the frustration every Sunday. The offense looked outdated. Quarterbacks looked uncomfortable. Young talent came in and somehow looked worse instead of better. Steelers fans have been begging for evolution, begging for modern offensive thinking, begging for a staff that actually understands how to develop quarterbacks in today's NFL. Now suddenly, that energy feels different. The biggest reason: what's happening right now with Drew Allar behind closed doors. And before we fully dive into that situation, the Steelers quietly made another move that deserves attention because it says a lot about how this organization is approaching the roster right now. Pittsburgh added former New York Giants safety Makari Paige, and while some people are going to immediately call this a meaningless depth signing, I completely disagree. These are the exact kinds of moves smart organizations make during the offseason. Championship-caliber teams never stop building the bottom of the roster. They never stop creating competition. And after what happened to Pittsburgh's secondary last season, this move makes perfect sense. The injuries in the defensive backfield last year completely exposed how thin things could get. 1 injury turned into 2. Then suddenly communication issues started showing up, missed assignments appeared everywhere, and depth became a serious concern. So instead of sitting around hoping everyone stays healthy this season, the Steelers are loading up with options. That matters. Makari Paige may not be a headline-grabbing name right now, but this is a player coming from a serious football culture at Michigan. 5 years in a winning environment, a national championship pedigree, over 130 career tackles in college, multiple interceptions, multiple pass breakups. This isn't some random body being added to camp. This is another competitive piece entering a room that suddenly has a lot of interesting names fighting for roles. You've got Deshaun Elliott in there. You've got Jaquan Brisker. You've got young defensive backs battling for opportunities. You've potentially got Jalen Ramsey moving all over the formation depending on how the defense wants to use him. That versatility matters in today's NFL because offenses attack defenses differently every single week now. And this is what I love most about the Steelers right now. They are not acting comfortable. That's dangerous for the rest of the league. The second an organization starts believing its roster is complete, complacency creeps in. Pittsburgh isn't doing that. They are still searching for upgrades, still adding competition, still experimenting with versatility. That's exactly what serious teams do. But let's be honest. The real story everybody's talking about is Drew Allar. Because the reports coming out of rookie minicamp are honestly fascinating. According to ESPN reporting, the Steelers' coaching staff is essentially tearing down everything Allar learned previously and rebuilding him from the ground up. And when you first hear that, it sounds extreme. But the more details that come out, the more it actually makes sense. Think about the situation this kid came from. There were already questions around how Penn State developed quarterbacks. Multiple coaches around the Big Ten reportedly believed Allar had elite physical talent, but wasn't being properly developed mechanically or mentally at the position. That's a massive statement. We're talking about a quarterback with legitimate NFL tools, size, arm strength, raw talent, but with huge areas needing refinement. And now Pittsburgh appears determined to completely reshape him. Footwork, mechanics, processing speed, under-center timing, pocket rhythm, everything. That's not a quick adjustment. That's a total quarterback reconstruction project. And honestly, Steelers fans should be excited about that instead of scared. Because for the first time in a while, it feels like this coaching staff actually has a vision. Question for you guys early on here. Would you rather the Steelers rush Drew Allar onto the field immediately, or completely rebuild him the right way even if it takes a full season? Let me know, because this is where Steelers fans are seriously divided right now. What stands out most is how intentional this process already looks. Mike McCarthy and the quarterback coaches reportedly spent rookie minicamp hyper-focused on fundamentals. They weren't worried about flashy throws. They weren't trying to create viral clips. They were drilling the boring stuff. Foot placement, timing, lower body mechanics, transition movement. The details that separate college quarterbacks from NFL quarterbacks. That's coaching. Real coaching. And look, Steelers fans have seen the opposite before. Last year with Justin Fields, there were constant conversations about trying to clean up mechanics and footwork, but it never truly looked comfortable. It felt like the coaching staff was trying to tweak problems instead of fully rebuilding the foundation. And when a quarterback's base isn't solid, everything else falls apart under pressure. Timing disappears. Accuracy disappears. Confidence disappears. But with Allar, Pittsburgh isn't patching cracks. They're rebuilding the structure from scratch. That's a completely different philosophy. And there's another huge reason this matters. The Aaron Rodgers situation. Because whether people want to admit it or not, every move Pittsburgh makes right now tells a story about how confident they are, or aren't, in Rodgers eventually showing up. If Rodgers joins the team, obviously the short-term picture changes. But if he doesn't, suddenly this quarterback room becomes fascinating. Will Howard could realistically push for serious reps. Mason Rudolph remains the veteran depth option hanging around in the background. And Drew Allar becomes the long-term developmental project with massive upside. Honestly, part of me likes that scenario better. Not because Aaron Rodgers isn't still talented, but because Steelers fans are starving to see something real built organically again. The constant veteran rental strategy gets exhausting after a while. At some point, fans want to believe the organization has actually found the next guy instead of borrowing one. And right now, Pittsburgh is acting like they may believe Drew Allar could eventually become that guy. That doesn't mean he's close right now. Far from it. In fact, some of the most interesting comments from Mike McCarthy were about just how raw Allar still is fundamentally. He talked openly about how different this system is compared to what Allar previously experienced. The transition under center, the footwork adjustments, the timing concepts, even basic operational mechanics are being reintroduced differently. That's huge. People forget how many college quarterbacks enter the NFL completely unprepared for pro-style structure. Some guys spend almost their entire college career operating from shotgun formations, reading simplified concepts, and relying purely on athletic ability. Then suddenly they enter the NFL where everything speeds up. Defenses disguise everything. Windows close instantly. Pass rushers are faster. Processing becomes everything. And if your feet aren't synced with your reads, you're dead. That's why McCarthy's emphasis on footwork matters so much. He specifically talked about how proper mechanics allow quarterbacks to play faster mentally, because their body is already aligned with the progression. That's advanced quarterback coaching philosophy right there. Great quarterback development is never just about arm talent. It's about making the physical process automatic so the brain can focus entirely on the defense. That's exactly what Pittsburgh appears to be teaching right now. And honestly, hearing that should make Steelers fans feel optimistic. Because whether you personally believe in Allar or not, the approach itself sounds modern and intelligent. The Steelers are finally acting like quarterback development is a science instead of a guessing game. And here's another thing that jumped out to me. They pushed him hard immediately. Reports from rookie minicamp said Allar was absolutely exhausted by the workload, completely gassed, taking rep after rep after rep. Mike McCarthy admitted afterward that it was intentional. They wanted to stress him mentally and physically right away. I actually love that. Not because players should be destroyed physically, but because quarterback is the ultimate pressure position in sports. If a young quarterback can't handle intense practices, information overload, constant communication demands, and exhausting repetition, how is he supposed to handle fourth quarters in December? McCarthy basically said, "Let's find out right now what this kid is made of." And according to everyone there, Allar responded beautifully. That matters. A lot. Because coaches notice those things immediately. They notice body language. They notice communication. They notice whether teammates respond to you in the huddle. They notice how quickly you recover after mistakes. Those are leadership indicators. And apparently, the Steelers coaching staff loved what they saw. McCarthy specifically praised how Allar handled communication responsibilities, formation adjustments, personnel groupings, tempo changes, and pre-snap organization. That's a lot being thrown at a rookie quarterback very quickly. And instead of collapsing under it, he reportedly handled it extremely well. That's encouraging. Very encouraging. Now let's calm down slightly before people start declaring him the next superstar quarterback tomorrow morning. There is still a gigantic gap between promising rookie minicamp reports and becoming a successful NFL starter. A gigantic gap. Drew Allar still has major growth areas. His processing must improve. His consistency must improve. His anticipation throws must improve. His pocket awareness must improve. Basically, every part of quarterbacking outside of raw physical talent still needs work. But here's why fans are intrigued anyway. You cannot teach the physical gifts he already has. The size is real. The arm strength is elite. The velocity jumps off the screen. And when coaches believe they can fix mechanics and processing issues, suddenly you're talking about a quarterback prospect with legitimate upside. That's why Pittsburgh is investing so much time right now. They clearly believe the ceiling is worth chasing. And honestly, that ceiling is massive. We're talking about potential franchise quarterback tools if everything develops correctly. Now, whether it actually happens, that's another conversation entirely, because quarterback development is brutal. For every successful project, there are 10 failures. The NFL destroys talented quarterbacks every year. But the Steelers finally appear committed to doing this patiently instead of recklessly. That's the key difference. Question of the day: if Aaron Rodgers never signs, who would you rather see start games this season? Will Howard, Mason Rudolph, or Drew Allar? Drop your answer in the comments, because Steelers fans are going to argue about this one for weeks. Personally, I'm fascinated by Will Howard too. I know a lot of fans are focused entirely on Allar right now, but don't overlook Howard. There are already people around the league who believe he should have been drafted significantly earlier. Some evaluators reportedly viewed him as a day 2 talent that somehow slid much further than expected. That happens every draft. Quarterbacks fall for weird reasons. Systems, interviews, team preferences, timing. One bad perception can completely alter draft position. And Pittsburgh may have quietly stolen value there. So now suddenly you've got 2 young quarterbacks entering the system with developmental upside, while the Aaron Rodgers situation remains unresolved in the background. That creates competition. That creates urgency. And honestly, that creates hope. Because Steelers fans have desperately wanted to believe again at quarterback. Not temporarily. Long term. That's why these minicamp reports are generating so much excitement. It's not just about one practice or one throw. It's about the possibility that Pittsburgh finally has a developmental vision again. And if Mike McCarthy truly unlocks these quarterbacks, everything changes. The offense changes. The future changes. The identity of the franchise changes. Because for years, Steelers football has relied heavily on defense, carrying the entire organization. But in today's NFL, you eventually need explosive quarterback play if you want to consistently compete with the elite teams. You need someone who can process quickly, attack aggressively, and elevate the entire offense. Pittsburgh knows that. That's why they're investing this much energy into rebuilding Allar correctly from day one. And honestly, the patience here is what impresses me most. They are not rushing him. They are not forcing unrealistic expectations onto him. They are teaching, correcting, rebuilding, developing. That's exactly how young quarterbacks should be handled. And if it takes a full year, fine. If it takes 2 years, fine. Because if you truly believe the ceiling is franchise quarterback level, then rushing the process would be the dumbest thing you could possibly do. The Steelers finally seem to understand that. One more thing before we wrap this up: the attitude from the coaching staff feels different too. There's toughness here. There's accountability here. There's an old-school edge mixed with modern quarterback development philosophy. And honestly, that combination could be incredibly effective. McCarthy pushing Allar through exhausting practice reps wasn't punishment. It was preparation. It was a test. And apparently the rookie passed it. That's the type of stuff coaches remember. That's the type of stuff locker rooms notice. And slowly, quietly, this quarterback room is becoming one of the most interesting storylines in the entire NFL offseason. Not because Pittsburgh already has the answer, but because for the first time in a while, it genuinely feels like they might be building toward one. And Steelers fans should absolutely be paying attention to that.